Whilst the legal system is normally reliable, sometimes it can be pretty unfair, with unfair being an understatement. Here are the top 5 worst cases of false conviction. Number 1. Jeff Descovich. Jeff Descovich was only 17 years old when he was convicted of the rape and murder of a fellow pupil in 1990. Despite his willingness to be put on a lie detector and being fully cooperative, officers had other ideas. For several hours at a time, police tore into him, giving him hints to private information which he would then later repeat, which made himself appear guilty, all whilst being denied a lawyer. It proved too much for Descovich, and he admitted to the crimes despite not actually committing them. A semen sample was taken from the victim and was found to not match Descovich's DNA. However, the theory was given and accepted that the girl had in fact had consensual sex with the owner of the semen and was later raped by Descovich. In 2006, Jeffrey Descovich was released aged 33, having been behind bars for a crime he didn't commit for 16 years. His release was due to help from the Innocence Project, a charity that helps overturn false convictions. He has recently been compensated a sum of over $40 million, which he used to gain a college degree and set up a charity in his own honor in order to help people like him. Number 2. Damon A. Thibodeau. 23-year-old Damon A. Thibodeau confessed to murdering his 14-year-old step-cousin, Crystal Champagne, who was reported missing in mid-July 1996 in New Orleans after failing to return home from the supermarket. After being missing for almost 24 hours, Crystal's body was found near a bridge, where she had been strangled with wire and was suspected to have been raped. Thibodeau was interrogated for 9 hours and was even made to take a lie detector test, which police alleged showed signs of mistruth. He finally snapped and confessed. Neither his interrogation or confession were on record. The story was, allegedly, that Thibodeau had picked his young step-cousin up and they began to have consensual sex. As she became uncomfortable, Crystal wanted to stop. Thibodeau became angry and strangled her with his bare hands before turning to wrap the wire around her neck. This was quoted by investigators, however there was still no evidence and no records of confession. No physical evidence existed, as a sweep of his vehicle determined that no fibers matched those of Crystal. Regardless, in 1997, Damon Thibodeau was sentenced to death for the murder and rape of Crystal. He spent the next 15 years in solitary confinement, where for 23 hours a day he was completely alone. Following his release, Thibodeau moved to Minnesota and began working at Fredrickson and Byron, the law firm which helped to exonerate him. He is also a spokesperson for wrongful conviction reform. Number 3. Timothy Cole. In 1985, 25-year-old Timothy Cole was attending Texas Tech University when he was accused of the rape of fellow student Michelle Mallon. Michelle had been approached by a male shortly after she parked her car at the college and was attacked and forced back into her car, where she was sexually assaulted. The only factor that tied Cole to the offense was that he worked in the same vicinity. Police showed Michelle a Polaroid photograph of Cole, where she confirmed that he was in fact her attacker. Despite no physical evidence and several witnesses claiming that Cole was studying in his apartment at the time, he was arrested and convicted of rape, and a judge sentenced him to 25 years in prison. While inside, Cole was offered parole if he would confess to the rape, but he refused to accept guilt. In 2007, Jerry Wayne Johnson, a fellow inmate who had been locked up for 2 other rapes in '85, admitted to being the actual rapist. However, nothing could be done because the statute of limitations had expired. Cole died in prison 8 years prior to the confession due to asthmatic complications and became the first person in Texas history to be granted a pardon posthumously. There is even now a statue of Cole where the rape occurred. with the monument facing the Texas Tech's law school to remind the future generation of law students that humans are prone to error. Number 4. The West Memphis Three. The West Memphis Three were three teenagers, Damian Echols, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Misskelley, who were convicted of murdering three young boys in 1993. Echols, Baldwin, and Misskelley were deemed as outcasts at their time of arrest and were accused of worshiping Satan and were suspected of killing the boys in a satanic ritual. There was no evidence at all linking the three young men to the brutal murders. However, an unexpected confession from Misskelley, which implicated them all, found the three teens guilty. Although Misskelley claims the police interrogated him for over 12 hours and he was afraid of them, so he told them what he thought they wanted to hear. In 1994, both Misskelley and Baldwin were sentenced to life imprisonment, and Echols was sentenced to death. It was only recently, in 2011, that the three teens, now men, were freed after serving over 18 years due to new forensic evidence which showed that the West Memphis Three did not commit the murders. The men have garnered celebrity support, and documentaries have been released in order to build up a fund to help with their legal fees. To this day, not much is known about the daily life of Misskelley, but Echols is a nationally reclaimed artist, and Baldwin went on to produce a movie about the case titled Devil's Knot. Number 5. Daryl Pinkins. A man by the name of Daryl Pinkins was convicted of the gang rape of a 27-year-old woman in the winter of 1989 in Gary, Indiana. The incident was spawned by a car crash where the woman in question exited her vehicle to check the damage, only to be jumped by who she believed was Pinkins and 4 others. The 5 men jumped into her car and stole her purse containing $20 and a handgun before sexually assaulting her. The thing that tied Pinkins to the crime was a green coverall that was used to cover the woman's face, which had been issued to Pinkins and 2 of the men by the company they worked for. Pinkins and the 4 others were arrested for the rape, but 2 of the men were dropped from the case. Pinkins and the other men all protested their innocence and explained to detectives that their car had been broken into and their work clothes had been stolen. However, in 1991, Pinkins was convicted of rape, robbery, and deviant sexual conduct. This caused him to be sentenced to 65 years in prison. While none of the DNA evidence matched to Pinkins, the victim identified him as one of the men, and another cellmate mentioned that he had confessed to the crime. Pinkins reached out to the Indiana Innocence Project to help him fight for his innocence. After 25 years behind bars, the DNA evidence was finally looked over once again, using a new type of DNA analysis technology, which led to Pinkins' final moments in prison. After more than 2 decades behind bars, on April 25, 2016, Pinkins was released to family and friends as a free man. Sadly, the time in prison did not treat him well, as he lost his teeth, became diabetic, and contracted thyroid disease. After his release, Pinkins spoke to reporters and said the following: "There was a crack in the system. It does exist, and I'm not the only one within this situation that's going through this. It's people that are not fortunate enough to get the team that I have behind me." Pinkins also explained that he wasn't bitter about what happened to him and is looking forward to life ahead of him.